You're trying to create a dynamic stacked bar chart that expands automatically every time you add a new row or a new column. But you're stuck and you don't know how to do it. Don't worry. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step exactly how to create a dynamic stacked bar chart. So I have a data set over here consisting of store numbers and categories that are sold in each store. In this case, it consists of shoes and shirts. You can see we have a number of stores and also these two categories. Now we want to create a dynamic stacked bar chart based on this data set. But the thing is, there might be new stores added to this list in the future. And there might also be new categories, such as, say, pants or hats added to this list as well in the future. And we want all of that to be included in the stacked bar chart dynamically, without us having to go and change the range. Here's an example. Let's say we add a brand new data category here and we name it pants. And let's just add some random data over here. As you can see here, this new category has not been added to our stack bar chart. And also if we add a new store, say we add a store named store F, that won't be added either. So how to create a stack bar chart that expands automatically and is entirely dynamic? So to do that, we have to follow a number of steps. And those steps are as follows. First, we need to create a helper column, and we can create that helper column in any column we want. In this case, I'll create it, say, in column K. And in this helper column, we need to use a filter argument. We want our dynamic stacked bar chart to only take into account the stores which have a positive value for the categories. For example, in this case, we don't want our stacked bar chart to show store D because store D doesn't have any volume for any of the categories. That said, we're going to be using a filter formula, and that filter formula is currently displayed on the screen. And I'm going to insert that formula in cell K2. But before that, we need to have a sum formula which sums the volumes for each store. So, and I'm going to insert that formula in column A. Now you can insert it in any column you want, but for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to just insert it in column A in my case. This is going to be a simple sum formula, and I'm going to sum the volumes for each store, assuming there's going to be more stores in the future. Let's say we predict there's going to be 4 new categories in the future, so I'm going to take into account columns C through H for my sum. I'm going to drag this all the way down. Now I'm going to insert this formula, which is currently displayed on the screen, in cell K2 in my case. Here it is. So we're going to assume there's going to be maximum 1,000 stores. So I'm not going to select the entire column B range just to be more efficient. I'm just going to select 1,000 rows because we don't predict in this case we're going to have more than 1,000 stores. If you think your range is going to be bigger, consider selecting the full column or a much larger range. And then we're going to select the sum formula we just created. And we're also going to give that 1,000 rows of range. And the criteria is it has to be greater than 0. And there we go. So what this helper column is doing basically is it's giving us a list of all stores which have a positive volume across all categories and all potential future categories as well, assuming we have 6 categories in total at some point in the future. So as you can see, this is correctly returning A, B, C, and E, which have a positive volume. I'm going to populate the header as well. The header is going to be store number. For each of these categories, that is shoes, shirt, I'm going to insert a different formula. So I'm going to say if this category is equal to null, then null, otherwise return the category and close parentheses. And then I'll expand this up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 columns. You can see right now we're getting shoes and shirts. Now the next step is basically doing a VLOOKUP. So we're going to look up each of these categories within this list. So it's going to be a very simple VLOOKUP formula. And that formula is currently displayed on the screen. And I'm applying it to this range right now. I'll apply a reference lock as needed, as so. I'm going to select the column index. So it's a dynamic column index, as you can see here. Now I'm going to drag this all the way to the right to cover all potential 6 columns. And I'm going to drag this also down as much as I need, for example, up to this range. And something else I'll do is I'll add an if error argument to get rid of all these NAs. Okay, and it's going to be very simple. So I'm going to add an if error. There you go. So we're not getting the NAs now either. Now we have a list of all stores that have a positive volume across their categories. Now the next step is creating some named formulas. Now we need to create one named formula for our x-axis, and we also need to create one named formula for each of our categories. That includes all the future categories for which we still don't have data. First, let's start for the named category for the x-axis, that is for the stores. And that named formula is currently displayed on the screen. And to apply that, we have to go to Formulas in the ribbon, go to Name Manager, and click on New. And in this section over here, we're going to insert the named formula, which is currently displayed on the screen. Okay, there we go. I've created my named formula for the x-axis, and I'm going to explain how this formula works towards the end of the video. But for right now, I'm just going to click on OK. So now we have to create one named formula for each of our categories, for example, shoes, shirts, etc. As you know, since we want our stacked bar chart to be dynamic, we're going to create a number of named formulas for future categories as well. I'm going to create 6 categories. First, I'll show you how to create the first one, and the idea is going to be the same for all other 5. So let's create a named category. We're going to name this named formula category 1, as so. And that named formula is currently displayed on the screen over here. Okay, so I created my first name category, and that was for column L. Now I'm going to create 5 more name categories for my other 5 columns. So I'm just going to call them category 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. Now, if you have more than 6 categories or less, you just create as many name formulas for your categories as needed. But in this case, I'm just going to create a total of 6. And I'm going to go ahead and create those, and then I'll resume once they're all created. Okay, there we go. I'm all done. As you can see, I've created one named formula for each of our categories that are going to be potentially included. That is 2 for the categories we already have, and 4 for additional categories that are possibly going to be added in the future that we want to create placeholders for. So this is pretty simple. We just have to duplicate the same thing 6 times in this case. So depending on how many categories you think you're going to have, you have to create as many named formulas, and of course one named formula for the x-axis. So we're all done with our named formulas. Now let's create our stacked bar chart. So I'm going to go to Insert, I'm going to go to the Chart section and select this stacked bar chart over here. Now I'm going to right click and go to Select Data, as so. And in the Legend Entries section, I'm going to click on Add, as so. And now for this section, we're going to enter the name of our first category, in this case shoes, and I'm going to select it from here, that is on column L, from our helper columns. And in the select values, I'm going to click on this symbol over here, and now you will need to select any random cell in your workbook. It could be any cell in this sheet. And now you have to delete everything that comes after the exclamation mark. We'll leave everything else intact, but we delete everything after the exclamation mark. So I've done that. And now we enter the name of our first named formula for the first category. In this case, I had named it category 1. So I'm just going to enter category 1 after the exclamation mark, as so. And I'm going to click on OK. And don't worry, we're going to fix the x-axis right now. So let's go ahead and fix the x-axis, and that's very simple. All we have to do is click on Edit in the horizontal section over here. Again, select any random cell in your sheet and remove everything that comes after the exclamation mark, as so. And after the exclamation mark, input the name of the named formula we created for the x-axis, which in this case is x-axis, just like that. And we click on OK. And there we go. You see A, B, C, and E, which is in our helper column, is correctly appearing here. And there we go. We've already been able to successfully create a dynamic bar chart for only one category so far. Now, the next step is adding our remaining name formulas to this stacked bar chart. Right click, I'll go to Select Data again. Now in this Legend Entries section, we have to input the name of all 6 named formulas which I had previously created. So I'll click on add. Again, same thing. I'll select the header for our second category column, and then I'll click on series values, and I'll click on any random cell, delete everything that comes after exclamation mark, and then input category 2 as so. And there you go. As you can see, this is building up. Now I'm going to go ahead and also add the named formula for the other 4 categories, which we haven't created yet. So I'm going to click on add. I'm going to click on this header for a potential new category, which might be added in the future. I'll select values, click on any cell, and type category 3. And I'm going to keep on doing this for the other 3 as well. So I'm going to pause the video, do that, and once I'm done, I will resume. And we're all done. As you can see, I have inputted all the legend entries for all of our 6 categories here. All of those are present in our stacked bar charts source data. And I'll go on and click on OK. As you can see right now, our stacked bar chart is correctly showing only the stores which first of all have volume of greater than 0, and secondly, it's completely dynamic. Let me show you how. Let's say we add a new store to this list in our original data set, of course, not in our helper columns. Let's say we add a new store, and we call that store G. And let's add some volumes to this as well. Let's say shoes is 2 and shirts is 3. There we go. Store G has been dynamically added, so we didn't have to go and change the range. And we can go ahead and add as many stores as we want, up to 1,000 rows, of course, since we programmed this to be 1,000 at the beginning. So if you want more than 1,000, you can increase this range over here. Let's add another store. Say store H, and again, values are say 1 and 0. There we go. Store H is showing. So this stacked bar chart is dynamic as we add stores, but it's also dynamic when it comes to adding categories. Now, this is very interesting. So let's go ahead and add a brand new category. And let's name that category, say, pants. I'm going to add pants here. There we go. And right now it's not showing in our stack bar chart, and correctly so, because it doesn't have any volumes. But let me just enter some random data in this section. There we go. Pants is also showing in this section. For convenience, you can also add legend to this if you'd like to. So I'm going to add a legend on the top, and you can see the legend is showing all our existing categories, and it also has a placeholder for our additional 3 categories. So let's add, say, a new category, and let's call that category, say, jacket. There you go. And I'm just going to go ahead and add some dummy data for jackets as well. So as you can see, everything is dynamic. As soon as we input either a new row, that is a new row for stores, or a new category, up to 6 categories, it will dynamically show in our stack bar chart. And that's something we could not do with a normal stack bar chart. That is, if we just select a data range, it's not going to expand like this. And this is a very neat trick. And as I explained, it can be done with just a few named ranges. That is one for the x-axis and one for each additional column. And you have to create placeholder named formulas for each additional category that you think you're going to have in the future. As you can see, we have 6 categories here. 4 of them are visible and 2 placeholders for future categories. And if these 2 squares over here are bothering you, don't worry, you can always get rid of them if you don't still have those categories available. So you can right click, go to select data, and just uncheck these 2. And there we go. And those 2 squares have been removed. But we're just going to leave them in anyway. This way, as soon as you create a new category which has data, that category will be displayed in your stack bar chart. And this is a very neat trick to create a dynamic stack bar chart that is dynamic in more than one way. That is, it's dynamic when you add new values to your x-axis, in this case stores, and it's also dynamic when it comes to adding new categories, in this case new clothing lines. And that's how it works. Now I'm also going to briefly explain how these named formulas work. So this offset formula consists of a number of components. First of all, this count A part counts all non-empty cells from the starting cell to a specified point, in this case until the 1000th row. And what the offset does here, it begins at a fixed starting cell and extends the range downwards. And it covers the number of non-empty cells counted by the count A. So that's what the named formula for the x-axis does. Now, The named formula for each category consists of a number of formulas. One of them is match, and this match 1e plus 99 searches for the position of the last numeric value in the column, in this case in the categories columns in our helper columns. And that's how it identifies the last filled row. And the index part uses the position found by the match formula to pinpoint the last cell in a dynamic range, starting from a fixed initial cell. And that's how it works. You just have to create one named formula for your x-axis and one named formula for each of your categories, for as many categories as you think you'll have. Now, when it comes to stacked bar charts, it's not a very common practice to have more than 10 or 15 categories because things are going to get really cluttered and you're going to have lots of colors. It's usually best practice to keep it below 15 or even better yet, below 10 categories. So depending on your data set and what you're working with, you might need to create an additional, say, 3 or 4 named categories for your columns. And this approach is completely dynamic, and that's how it works. I hope you found this video useful and got some value out of it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you're new to my channel and you haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe and also turn on notifications so you won't miss out on my future videos. See you soon.